Let's talk anthuriums. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you my entire Anthurium collection, and we're going to kick it off right here with this bad boy. This is my King Anthurium, my Anthurium Veitchii, and what a plant it is. Look at the size of these leaves. These are probably around 40 to 50 centimeters at the largest. And I want to show you something special. If I bring you in for a closer look, right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is a new leaf coming in. So I'm going to take bets. Let me know how big you think this leaf is going to be in centimeters, how long and how wide. Let's see who gets it the closest. Let me know in the comments below, because this plant has been sizing up very nicely from the moment that I got it. It was an absolutely tiny plant, and it's now just this gigantic thing, this massive plant that I really enjoy growing. It is such an easy Anthurium to grow. I know this plant had the reputation of being a rare plant, a rare Anthurium, and usually with that title comes a level of difficulty that you would expect. But this plant, completely easy to grow. I don't grow it in any special conditions. It's just out in the wild, in the open, in relatively decent humidity, maybe around 50%. Drops a bit lower when the heating comes on in the summer, or in the winter rather. And it seems to be doing just fine, and it continues to grow. It's not the fastest grower. It probably puts out a leaf every couple of months. There are two plants in here. Well, one plant that sort of split into two. Usually we've had a leaf growing on each plant at the same time, but this time there's only the one with another one still in its sheath down here. So I think now there's going to be a bit of a distance between how these plants grow together. But for the very first plant, the very first Anthurium that I want to show you is this one, the King Anthurium. And if we're going to talk about royalty in the plant collection, that was the king. This right here is my Queen Anthurium, my third Queen Anthurium. The first one completely killed over. It actually fell, and it just didn't recover from that fall. I had another one that was doing great, and it just sort of died. And this is the latest one, and this one is doing a lot better, a lot healthier. Yes, we have some yellowing leaves, but these tend to be the older ones. In all of my years of keeping Anthurium, Queen Anthuriums in particular, I've only been able to keep 1 or 2 leaves on the plant at any time. Anytime a new one grows in, the older ones tend to fall off. But I've had these on here for quite a while, from maybe the moment that I got the plant. And you know, if they're only falling off now, then that's pretty good going. So I'm quite happy with that, considering that it went through the colder winter. It's looking okay to me, so that's really good. You can see that I have it on my little makeshift moss pole here, and that's literally a bottle, just a regular 2-liter bottle, and I've cut the face of it off, stuffed that with moss, and I've wrapped it with some plant ties, and then I've attached the plant to that with the same plant ties. You can see some plant cables here. And then I've wrapped that in sort of some plastic wrap. That just helps to keep the moss pole very moist all of the time, and I think that's contributed to keeping these leaves nice and happy. Now this is one of the first Anthuriums in a long time that I've decided to grow in soil, and this is Soil Ninja potting soil. Very good, very chunky, well draining, really high quality stuff. I do have a promo code in my description if you want to check out their soils. That could also be a contributing factor to why this plant is able to hold on to so many leaves. So that's food for thought for me, because I have, as you will see later in this video, a couple of Anthuriums that are not looking that great. So I'm gonna have to get my hands on some more Soil Ninja Anthurium soil and try to repot them into that to see how they fare. But yes, this is the Queen Anthurium, the Anthurium Warocqueanum. Just an absolute gorgeous and elegant plant. Just look at that. I'm really keen to show you guys this plant. This is my Anthurium Cutucuense. Just look at this. It's just it's such a different plant to other Anthuriums, as you will see. Most of them have these large, big, demanding leaves, or the ones that I like particularly, they all have these massive leaves that I can really get behind. But this one's a lot more slender. You can see that it's got just very thin leaves. It's not velvety, it's quite leathery, and it's got this belate sort of texture to the leaves. It's a very unique one because it sort of grows in this 3-prong, this kind of forked growth pattern. Really interesting plant. This one certainly is on the rarer side, just because this plant is one of the more difficult anthuriums to care for, just because its care is so different to other types of anthurium. Where other anthuriums are like that sort of warm tropic environments, this one's kind of opposite. It grows in the cloud forest, which means that it actually prefers slightly cooler temperatures. So that's something to consider. This plant is also a sucker for growing. If you don't have it on a good moss bowl, don't expect any good growth on this plant. It probably won't even mature for you. You might just stay with just a single prong. So definitely make sure that you get it on a moss bowl. Again, it's a similar idea to the Queen Anthurium, where it's a water bottle that I've got here, and I've just sort of wrapped it on itself so that I can put some moss in here. And you can see at the back here we have some roots that are coming through, and that's the key to helping your anthuriums mature a lot faster and to maintain that growth as well. Now, the last time I showed you guys this plant, I actually propagated it. I chopped off, I basically massacred this plant. I chopped it into several chunks, and I have sold one or two, and I had 3 left that I was desperately trying to propagate to see how we were getting on with those. And in today's video, I'm going to show you what those plants look like now. And here they are. They are super cute. If I get my face out of the way, hopefully the camera will focus on that. So this is what I'm saying. When it's not mature, you only have a single prong leaf. I'm going to put this one down. All of the remaining ones have grown in and looking really amazing. This one's just got a bit of probably too much humidity in that bag that I'm keeping it in, but that's looking really good. We've also got, no, that's not a leaf, but it looks like it's a bit swollen down here, so we may yet get another leaf out of this very soon. This one, however, is jumping the gun. Certainly was one of the smallest ones, and you can see that we've got a new leaf starting to poke its head out. This one looks really healthy, really good. Really happy with that one. This one was actually the base cutting, so this one had the most roots of any of these plants. And this morning when I took it out of the grow bag, it had this leaf, and you can see that it's completely fallen off. It's dead. I think it might just be too much humidity in this bag, so I am going to take them out of here. But you can see that we've got another leaf trying to emerge just down here. So it's very small. Actually, no, this is one of the older leaves. So you can see this is the first leaf. This was the second one. So the second larger one has fallen off. So hopefully we can sort that out and get it growing again. So how cool was that? Essentially 100% success rate on this Cutucuense. Really good stuff. Really looking forward to seeing what's next. A contender for one of my favorite anthuriums is this one. This is my Anthurium Peltigerum, and the reason why I like it is just because it's just got no lobes, and these massive dinner plates, bigger than my hand, massive dinner plate leaves, just really special, really special. Look at that. They almost remind me a little bit of the King Anthurium in that it has just the slight sort of texture to the leaves, a little bit ripply, a little bit like abs. Since I've had this plant, I'm very proud to report that I haven't lost a single leaf. Not yet anyway. So this plant is very good at maintaining all of that growth all of the time. So I know some people have really struggled to sort of grow this plant. I'm not sure what I'm doing differently with this plant, but hopefully we can figure that out together. I'm growing this plant in 100% pond or a semi-hydro mix. I tend not to leave water in the pot. So I'll tend to sort of just wash it through, and whatever is left, I'll just leave it in there. So it doesn't come any higher than maybe this ridge at the bottom. Ignore all of that water over there, or all of the salt marks. It's actually, I don't keep too much water. You can see the pot is hitting the ceiling. The pot is completely dry. And that seems to be working okay. You can see we have a really healthy root growth, some really cool noodles that are coming in. And I've kept it in a relatively small, compact pot. And that seems to be working well. And if you were keen enough, you would have seen that we actually have, right here, another leaf coming in. So again, just like with the King Anthurium, let me know in the comment area below how big you think these leaves are going to be. You can see it's a lot chunkier, a lot wider, and yeah, it might be similar to this, but I'm hoping that it's a lot bigger. But let me know your thoughts. Let's see who gets closest. I keep it growing in my grow tent, so decent humidity, maybe around 60 and above. good airflow, and that seems to be doing quite well. I do want to sort of bring it out into the open, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is gonna spell the end of this plant. I don't want to lose this plant. You know, it's been growing so well. I would hate to do something that just completely decimates it. So, but however, I would like to see it out here and enjoy it. Plus, it's growing really tall and it's getting a little bit too big for this cabinet. But anyway, that's enough. That's all for the Peltigerum for today. My very first velvet leaf Anthurium was this one right here. This is my Anthurium Clarinervium. This plant has been with me for quite a while. Quite a resilient plant as well. Very easy to sort of care for. So if you're one of those people that you're interested in trying your hand at a velvet leaf plant and you haven't had the chance to yet, the Clarinervium is definitely the one for you. Super easy to look after. One that can withstand lower humidity levels, and also can withstand short periods of drought as well. So if you forget to water your plant, it won't sort of rebel and drop all its leaves. So it's quite forgiving in that sense. This plant has, you know, been a prolific grower for me. You can see we have another new leaf coming in just here. I'm not going to damage it. I have noticed that the cold weather for the first time has resulted in some browning along the leaf edge. So that could be actually not just the cold. It could be the fact that it was sat in water for too long. So I think this is one of those plants that I want to, just like with the Queen Anthurium, grow in soil as opposed to pon and leca, because yeah, I would hate to lose this plant because it's been such a strong grower. This plant tends to keep its leaves for a very long time, maybe a year or maybe more. They get very bushy if you look after them well, and that's one of the things I like about this plant. Whereas other plants might tend to lose a leaf every time, you know, they might put out one or two. Just like I've said with my other Queen Anthuriums, this one is completely the opposite, where it really likes to hold on to these leaves. This was also the first plant that I ever experimented growing in semi-hydro, in this case leca. It's been in here ever since. It has been completely fine in here. I haven't had any major issues, just a couple of you know, stints where I've left it in the water for maybe a little bit too long. But it's been absolutely fine otherwise. Absolutely fine. You can see that it continues to grow. It hasn't paused. It's been an absolute gem to grow. If I had to compare it to the King Anthurium, I would still say the King is probably still a little bit easier than this one, because it could probably handle lower humidity levels than this one can. But this one is a very close contender in terms of being a very easy Anthurium to care for. So let's talk about this one. This is my Anthurium Radicans cross Luxurian. I recently showed this plant because I had to do an emergency sort of repot on it because it just lost every single one of its leaves. So I'm here just to sort of show you what this plant is looking like now. This leaf is still holding on strong. You remember that each of the stem had its just one leaf. The other one has lost that leaf. However, I am pleased to report that just here at the bottom, can you see that? We have new growth, it appears, just over here. And also there's a little other growth point just here. I wonder if the camera will pick it up, but just here. So definitely we have some new growth coming out very soon. And this one also has some new growth. Both of them are doing okay. There's still hope for this plant, and again, I think it might be something to do with the fact that I moved this one from this one was in pon. I've moved it from pon into soil. Really good, well draining mix. This is my own mix that I've made just for some leftover cocoa. But again, as I said, Soil Ninja make a really good alternative, so definitely check out the link below. But yeah, just to report that this one is doing okay. Fingers crossed that it continues that way, and I'll come back with a full report when this plant starts doing some stuff, just to sort of give you an update on the entire process of propagating and trying to save this plant. So yeah, the Anthurium Radicans cross Luxurian. This is my Anthurium Silver Bush that I got in a another plant swap trade. This plant is doing okay. It's doing relatively well. I actually anticipated that this plant would be a much faster grower than it is, but it's been quite steady. I guess we've been in the winter. We haven't had a lot of warmth, so maybe now that we're entering my first spring with this plant, my first sort of growing season, I'll be able to give you a better understanding of how to grow this plant. But so far, it's been absolutely fine. It's been growing out here in the open, so quite a resilient plant for a velvet leaf for a velvet leaf Anthurium, so that's quite cool. We do have some browning edges, but again, I think that's to do with the fact that I was leaving water in the plant pot as a reservoir, and you can see now I've stopped just for the winter, and that's completely halted the browning on the edges. And you can see that this leaf, for example, is in really good shape, really good nick. In terms of care, this plant again is one of the easier ones to look after. Again, if you want to try your hand at an Anthurium that sort of also tends to stay small for longer, this is the one for you. Not to say that these leaves won't get absolutely gigantic, but it takes a while to get there, which is quite nice to have something that grows very compact and very sort of consistent in its growth. Let's just look at the ultimate silveriness on this thing. Oh my goodness, look at that. Don't know if you can pick it up, it actually shimmers in the light. Ah, gorgeous little thing. I'm going to lump these two together because they came from the same mother plant. They both came from my Anthurium Magnificum cross Regale, and you can see they're very different in terms of their look. This one is a lot more round, a lot more heart shaped, versus this one, which is a bit longer and a bit more Anthurium cross Regale shaped, which is quite cool. You can see it's probably got a bit more of that Regale sort of look to it in terms of being a little bit longer than this one. But essentially, these are both from self-pollinated from the same plant, and you can see they've taken traits from different from different sides of the parentage of these plants. But I just came to give you a quick update on these two babies, doing really well. In fact, this one over here is working on a new leaf, so I'm not going to touch that before I damage it, but you can see that it's definitely doing something, and I'm hoping that it's going to be even bigger than this one, which is usually the case. These are looking really well. This one has a bit of water in the reservoir, so I'm going to empty that out soon. But yeah, really easy plants to grow. Again, have them growing out and about in the open, relatively lower humidity levels. But that doesn't seem to knock these plants. They seem to be doing just fine. In fact, they actually get not that much light. They're actually tucked away underneath sort of all of my plants, and they still seem to be doing okay. And that's evidenced by the fact that it's growing a new leaf. So this is it. These are the baby Anthurium Magnificum cross Regales. Not everything is hunky-dory, and to be fair, this plant certainly isn't. This is my Anthurium Furcatum. Look at this thing. It literally has no leaves left. It's just an absolute mess. This plant won the hardest plant to care for award in my annual plant awards video, and it's lived to that name, to that title. Look at it. It's just got nothing. It always seems to put out a new leaf and then lose everything else. So I'm not sure what the answer is for this plant. It is growing in ponds. I think today I'm going to repot it into some soil to see if that helps. Because ever since I've had it, I've been growing it just like this in pond, and this just might not be the sort of environment that this plant thrives in. If you've ever checked out Hakuna La Planta, his videos, he's got a really cool Furcatum. That's where I got the inspiration to sort of get my hands on this one. But mine just doesn't seem to want to do anything for me. So we'll see. This is definitely the worst performing Anthurium in my collection. But yeah, let's get back to some good ones. Let's call this section the Forgetii section. This is my, oh, there we go. It's quite a sprawler. This is my Anthurium Forgetii. This plant is an OG. Oh my goodness, right? This plant is responsible, single-handedly responsible for most of my seedlings that I've ever grown. It is such a good sort of breeder plant, for lack of a better term. It grows inflorescence like this one consistently all of the time. We can guarantee that this thing is going to grow an inflorescence, and it's always very receptive to pollen. A very good plant at sort of holding on to seeds and so on. So I've been very blessed to have this one, because I've been able to grow out lots and lots of seedlings from this plant. Probably approaching maybe 200-300 seedlings or so. And in this section, I'm going to show you some more seedlings. That is thanks to this plant. So this is the original Anthurium Forgetii. Again, another quite simple, easy plant to care for. Have it outdoors. This one could probably benefit from slightly higher humidity levels. However, that doesn't seem to stop it from growing, producing inflorescence and so on. You can see I still have some plastic wrap around this plant, but that's just to sort of maintain that humidity, to keep the moss moist around the stem, just so that we can encourage some more root growth. But yeah, this is the mother plant. Now let me show you some other plants that have actually come from this one. Recently saw this one from the tour of my Hillis grow tent over here, but this is from that same mother plant. The reason why I'm showing this one is because it has some really cool variegation on the leaves that I'm hoping is going to continue. Even this one over here, there are some white dots at the top, and that looks to me to be some variegation. So that's one example of how cool this plant is and the quality of seedlings that it produces. This is another cool little Anthurium Forgetii. So this one was crossbred with the mother and its own pollen. But the reason why I really like this one is just how belate and interesting these leaves grow. It doesn't really come up on camera from what I can see on the little screen here, but from the back, look at that. Look at that from the back. You can see how bumpy and rigid and belate these leaves are. Such a cool little plant. So I'm definitely keeping this one. Really cool grower as well. So has lots and lots of roots. So very healthy. And we have a new leaf coming out from over here as well. And by moving this philodendron out of the way, you can see all of these seedlings here. There are probably about 40 plants in here alone. And this is all from the one mother plant. Look at that. I think this one is a mix. And the reason why I think that is because of how red burgundy the leaves sort of emerge. So that's really cool. I think this is a mix between the Mad Rag, actually, the Magnificum cross Regale, and the Anthurium Forgetii. But yeah, some really, really cool plants here. And if we go up further, one other level, in this little one over here, propagating are some other seedlings, all thanks to that mother plant. And finally, at the top shelf, we have just a few more seedlings up here. So really, really good fertile plant. Definitely one I would suggest for you to try your hand at propagating seeds from. Although this plant wasn't propagated from my Forgetii, it is a Forgetii hybrid, and that's done with a Luxurian. So you can see the sort of the bumpy texture here from this, from the mother, or I'm not sure which one's the mother, which one's the father plant. But yeah, you can see that we have that. It's a really cool plant. Still slightly velvety, which is quite nice. And it also has that classic Luxurians petiole where it's kind of square, which is very, very cool. Very, very interesting plant. This one is growing in soil, as you can see. I always butcher the name of this plant, so I'm not gonna attempt where it's gonna be on the screen. This is that really infamous Anthurium with the corkscrew inflorescence. It's still a little baby, but you can see we actually have some new growth just here in the middle of the plant. I'm hoping that this thing really levels up and grows quite quickly. It's just so small, so I'm so careful around this plant. I don't want to snap anything. And the fact that I grow it under this little dome, I have to be really careful how I place it. So I just can't wait for it just to sort of size up a little bit and be a little bit more robust than it is now. But yeah, this is that plant. This plant probably is one of the harder ones to care for. Not as hard as the Furcatum, but very, very close. This is my Anthurium Regale. I got this as a chunk. I grew it out. It died. It grew out again. It died. It's just a back and forth tango between me and this plant. It's the first time that it's got a steady growth. And however, I am growing it in a grow bag. I'm terrified to take it out of the grow bag and let it grow in just sort of regular humidity, because I just have a feeling as soon as I do that, it's just gonna go downhill. But yeah, this is a plant that I've battled with for quite a while, but it is notorious for being quite a tough grower. It requires very, very high humidity levels. I can second that. It certainly is a difficult one to care for. And that said, it's going right back in the grow bag. Oh, you thought I forgot? You thought I forgot? How can I forget? Last but not least is this plant right here. This is the bad boy, the Anthurium Magnificum cross Regale. Just a legend in my collection. Look at this thing. Despite the battle wounds and the damage that this plant has experienced. Just an absolute beast, a monster. For the very first time in a very long time, we have an inflorescence, and the fact that it's starting to go green from the bottom there is a sign that it was successful in being pollinated, but we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. And if I bring you down here in the bottom, we have another inflorescence making its way out. So another opportunity to get some seedlings out of this plant. You thought I forgot. I could never forget this bad boy. Well, that brings us to the end. A full tour of all of my Anthuriums. Some of these you've seen recently, some of them you haven't seen in a while. Let me know what you thought of them, how they've grown, how they've fared through the winter. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. But from me and from all of my Anthuriums, keep planting.